was in between a community tour with folks that have come from the outside to, from other parts of the state to learn about our work. And I didn't quite make it back to my office in time. So anyway, I'm praying that all is well with the tech and the sound as I work with my laptop and mobile hotspot. So my name is Camila Chavez, and I was raised in the farm workers movement, Dolores' youngest daughter, niece of Cesar Chavez. And in 2003, with my mother, decided to start the Dolores Huerta Foundation. She had left the UFW and she wanted to go back to community organizing. It was a goal that her and Cesar always had, and I wanted to help her in that. At the time, I was actually starting my own career in public health, but I knew that I was realizing, that there was a lot of problems within the public health field and that our system is broken, and I just didn't have the tools or know how. And thought, well, let me see what I can learn, right? About organizing and advocacy. And so I will share some of that. And I'm actually going to go ahead and start sharing slides right now of our organization and the work that we do. So, okay, trying to go to the next slide. There we go. So our mission at the Dolores Huerta Foundation is to inspire and organize communities to build volunteer organizations. So we know that we'll never have enough money to pay the community organizers we need, but we also need people to understand that the most valuable thing that they have is their own time. So many of the folks we work with are super low income, they can't make donations and all of that, but we all have time, and that is the most precious thing that we can give. And that's what we teach folks, is how to work with their neighbors to make the improvements that they want in their own communities. Now, the values that we work by are: number one, self-determination, that the communities that are most impacted are the ones that have the answers and the solutions to fix the issues that they're facing. So whether it's like infrastructure, a lot of the unincorporated communities that we work with don't have sidewalks and street lights and, recreational services for the young people or just, everyday community members. And so whatever it is that they choose, we teach them how to become organizers and advocates to hold elected officials accountable. And that's where, it's obviously social justice and democracy, right? How does government work? So many people have no idea. They don't know the first thing to do when they want to, make a change in their community. And we know that collective action is what's needed. One person asking for something is a lot different than 500 community members coming together. And of course, everything that we do is, continues the movement of nonviolence, feminism as well. We teach folks about reproductive justice and the importance of supporting our LGBTQ community as well. So this is our kind of our geographic area here in California. So I'm in Kern County right now. Bakersfield is the biggest city here in Kern. And we have a lot of chapters in Kern. So Lamont, Arvin, and then way out in California City, we have chapters that we're starting in Los Angeles and East LA and San Gabriel Valley, as well as north in Woodlake and Lindsay. And then we have an organizer in Fresno County. So this is considered the Southern Central Valley here in California. And so our model is to teach people about grassroots organizing. It's the same way that Cesar and Dolores were recruited in the 1950s. For folks that don't know the history, they were recruited in a house meeting. And it was a white man, Fred Ross Sr., who recruited them. And at that time, it was with this organization called the Community Service Organization. Dolores and Cesar, that's where they met. Through that organization, they both rose up into the leadership ranks, but they decided to leave that organization when the board said they did not want to organize farm workers, that would not be a priority of that organization. And that's when they left to start the Farm Workers Union. So they had a 5-year plan to do house meetings. And that plan was disrupted in 1965 when Filipino went on strike. But here, for 3 years, they had already been having house meetings. And so there was a base of farm workers to join the strike. And the rest is history. I'm not going to go much more into that. If you don't know, then you should do your research about that. But the reason why I mention is because we still use the organizing model of house meetings, not to be confused with house parties, okay? So house meetings are where we train organizers to go into a community and to meet with everyday people. So I would go to Monica's house and say, can you bring your friends, your family, your coworkers to your home so we can talk about, what's going on here in the community? And that's when the organizer learns about something that might be happening with, crime or a school issue or a water rate that has been increased. Because after multiple meetings in these small, intimate settings where people feel safe to speak about what's on their mind, an organizer can really get a sense of what's going on and what people are prioritizing. So then they can all come together once an organizer meets with over 100 people in a house meeting. In-house meetings, you bring them all together, and that's how we start our chapters. And then we have people plan together, prioritize what is most important. How can we work together, hold our elected officials accountable so that they can be instrumental in getting the resources needed for the community improvements that we want to see. Okay, I'm trying to change the slide. Okay, so here's an example. Here's a street that had zero sidewalk, and the community was able to get sidewalks for this street. This is a school gymnasium where the community members said, we want to improve our schools and we think our children deserve a gymnasium. Other schools have them, why don't we? And so when they went to the school board said, we'd love to partner with you and pass a school bond measure, which they did. And, 1 to 2 years later, they had a brand new gymnasium. And the same thing in this community in Woodlake. In a house meeting, someone asked, why do we pay a park tax when we don't have a park? And the organizer said, that's a good question. Let's take it to city council. Well, guess what? Within the year, a new park was being constructed in their own neighborhood, right? So that's how democracy works. And that's what we're teaching people. Basically, figure out who your decision makers are and go speak to them. This is our newest chapter in Wasco. It's here in Kern County, just north of Bakersfield. And all these folks participated in house meetings and then decided to come together. Every chapter has 2 coordinators and a secretary. They run their meetings and work with community members on the projects that they've chosen. And at the same time, Dolores Huerta Foundation provides the training of other things that are happening, right? Like the state of our government right now, um, what's going on with the Trump administration, all the budget cuts, we're providing that information to folks in these monthly general meetings that the chapters host. So for our goals, our organizing goals were, continuing to have house meetings and to engage over 1,500 residents here in our local area. We have 11 independent chapters, and we're working to get even more on a smaller neighborhood level, just because of what's going on with with immigration raids, with folks losing work and things like that. We feel like we need to focus much more on mutual aid and to get more granular on the community neighborhood level. We are very engaged in civic engagement, right? So we make sure that folks know who their elected officials are, establish a relationship with them. We are big on redistricting. After the census, we were very instrumental in proposing maps, working with community members and other organizations. We got over 5,000 people to engage in the mapping process, which was no easy feat during COVID, right? When so many of us were, working remotely. And we also are very active in Sacramento. We get vans and buses and take folks to go speak to their elected officials there in our state capital. So last year was a big election year, and we reached over 18,000 voters. So that's on the doors, on the phones, having one-on-one conversations to build a progressive voter base. These are nonpartisan conversations because Dolores Huerta Foundation is a 501c3. We do have a 501c4 called Dolores Huerta Action Fund. But of the 18,000 people we spoke to, 13,000 said, yes, we agree with, how you're recommending to vote on the statewide ballot propositions. 5,000 opted in to give us their email and their cell phones, and we had 800 volunteer shifts. So pretty good. Education equity. We know that we are like our area is the epitome of the school to prison pipeline. We have more prisons than universities here in the Central Valley or the San Joaquin Valley, what it's also known as. And so we train parents and teens, youth, how to advocate. What are the improvements that they want to see in their schools? And again, they're very active at the school district board meetings asking for budget transparency and advocacy. Here in California, we have something called the Local Control Accountability Plan. And basically, it says that community members can give input on a school district budget, or they must give input before the Board of Trustees approve the budgets. So this is a great win for us when Governor Jerry Brown put this into place. So it's really helped increase oversight and accountability. And we've been the vecinos and the youth have been very successful in getting dollars taken away from police officers on campus and getting more funding for mental health services, parent centers, tutoring services. So we've had a lot of success with that. And we have a youth program. And so again, we want to teach young people the importance of voting, and even for those who can't vote because they're too young or maybe they're not citizens, but that all of us can engage in this democracy, so-called democracy, right? We know it's at risk right now with this authoritarian regime coming in, and so we're doing everything we can to fight it. And so whatever the youth identify as important to them, just like with vecinos, we're helping them formulate campaigns, do power mapping and the power analysis. And then we're part of many coalitions, regional and statewide coalitions to end the school to prison pipeline. And here's some pictures of our young people. So the guy in the right with the microphone, Jonathan, he's now in college and he's our intern. So he's been with us since he was 11 years old. So proud of the trajectory that he's on. We also provide academic resources. That's a newer program where we're helping them with scholarships, doing college tours and all of that to make sure that they are able to go to college. We have a health program, and tomorrow we're launching a big community needs assessment survey. We surveyed 4,000 people here in our counties, and so we'll be presenting this information to stakeholders and local electeds. And so really proud of that work, and it'll be on our website at doloreshuerta.org a little later this week. And we are part of a new statewide coalition called California Oral Health Equity Coalition. And we are advocating for dental therapists. We know in so many little tiny communities, rural communities, that there are very few dentists. And that's not really the place where most dentists want to be. There are 14 other states in the United States that have dental therapies. They allow that. And so we're asking that we have that here in California. They are basically can do a lot of the same things a dentist can do under supervision of dentists. So that's what we are advocating for. And then we also have a resource department where people call us. They need assistance with different things, referrals for food, rent. And we have a program called Unite Us. It's a platform, and we help connect people to the services they need. So that is, oh, and this is, I think, the last slide of our what we're working on. I already talked about our community needs assessment. We have an immigration rapid response network here in Kern County where we've trained in partnership with other groups, hundreds of legal observers, volunteers, and we have a very good model here in Kern County. We're fighting detention centers here in Kern County. We have 3 immigration detention centers, and the newest one is in a town called California City in the high desert. And so we've been fighting that. Unfortunately, it opened. They have horrible living conditions already. It's very sad. So we are working with Detention Watch Network to fight that and to close it down. We do voter outreach, as I've mentioned, organizing trainings, and we just broke ground for the Dolores Huerta Peace and Justice Cultural Center. We are actually building a home in downtown Bakersfield. It's a 2-year project, 30,000 square foot building that we just started. In 2 years, this new center will open up. And that is the gist of our organization. So here's our website, doloreshuerta.org, and our social media handles if you'd like to follow us.
Monica, are you there? Thank you so much, Camila.
Sorry, I was unspotlighting and remarking people. Thank you so much for that presentation, Camila. I really appreciate you again taking the time to come. If it's okay with you, I'd also like to reintroduce you so that we can have that for our recording as well. So again, you just heard from Executive Director and co-founder of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. She was raised in the farm worker movement as the youngest daughter of Dolores Huerta and Richard Chavez and the niece to Cesar Chavez. And we're so grateful for your time today. Do you have a few moments for some Q&A today?
Yes.
Wonderful. Then we'll go ahead and remove the spotlight and we'll bring everybody that wants to come on camera. And even if you don't want to come on camera, feel free to put your questions in the chat or feel free to unmute and ask your question out loud. And I welcome anyone to unmute and ask a question now. That would be really great.
Well, I can start.
Thank you.
My name's Herminia Esqueda. Marched with my parents when I was young, the great boycott and all of that. But I know that your mom doesn't get enough credit for the Si Se Puede. Could you share a little bit of the background of how she came up with the Si Se Puede slogan, motto, chant that we still use today?
Yeah, so they had been successful in the 60s. So in 1965 is when they had the big Delano grape strike that lasted 5 years. So after 5 years, the growers came to the table, they signed a lot of contracts, and then they went on to Arizona. I believe the year was 1973. So Dolores was there trying to organize, and they she says, this is how we did it, in California. And they're like, oh, no, no, este es Arizona. No, no se puede en Arizona. En California, ustedes pueden hacer esas, cosas, pero aquí no. And she said, no, sí se puede in Arizona. And that's how the slogan, she just said, you know what, this is it. We just have to tell people sí se puede. And so that's how it happened.
Thank you. We also like to say she se puede.
That's right. Sí se puede.
Thank you for the question, Armenia, and thank you for that history. We're always excited to hear a little bit more about Dolores Huerta and how iconic she's been and the things that she's done. We have time for more questions. If anyone has any questions, a lot was shared today about planning, taking care of community, how to get our communities influenced and interested in getting involved in politics and how to speak to our representatives. So I welcome any questions like that as well. If you think of some later, hopefully you can email them to us and we'll be able to commit them to the group and see if we can get a response. How does that sound?
I see two in the chat, so I can go ahead and address
Fantastic.
those
Thank you.
questions. So the first one is how do I keep positive? It is hard in these times, let's be real. It is so hard to stay positive. But I will say that we've come a long way since slavery. Okay, let's just say that. Indigenous people, Black people, that have been slaves. And so we know that we can't go back. And when I think about, and what I've been sharing with my staff and in other trainings is like, look, folks, when Cesar and Dolores were organizing in the 1960s, they had a landline, they had payphones and telegrams. Someone was like, what's a telegram? How did that even work? I'm like, well, I never used one. Thank goodness I'm not that old. But the thing is, we have all of these tools at our disposal. I mean, I'm over here speaking to you, all of you in, the state of Washington, right? And so, but the thing is, we can't, sometimes we make things a little too complicated, right? And I also think about when they were organizing, they had no one. Like their coalitions were so small. When the United Auto Workers came to help them, that was such a huge deal. Well, we have all kinds of good relationships. Many of you are union members, right? And that, there's all these other unions. And although, unions are, also being under attack, right? And losing their power, we just all have to stick together. And that we have these like regional, statewide coalitions, national coalitions. Like, I just feel like we're in such a better place to really fight. Cesar and Dolores and the farm workers were fighting Nixon, Reagan on their own, essentially, and now we have, electeds in office who, yeah, they're scared. We have corporations, they're scared, but we need to be the ones that are leading them to follow us against this regime, right? We can bring it down. So for those of you that haven't heard, historically, the historical research shows that 3.5% of the population need to rise up. That doesn't mean just in marches, but they need to be part of these non-cooperation, saying, no, hell no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to, have these, we could have like a general strike and I just want to be careful. I'm not using that term, loosely. There was a farm worker strike, for example, that recently, a couple months ago, someone's like, oh, all the farm workers are going to go on strike. Well, of course, that wasn't successful. These things take time, right? But we can organize within our cities, within our regions, looking at local government. So we need to just, work in coalition spaces. Now's the time to come together. I know it's hard if we don't always agree on everything, but now is the time to expand our umbrella, bring everybody into this network to fight what's going on.